Hello and welcome to Mimi's Sketchbook. Today my illustration was inspired by Paul David Tripp's book New Morning Mercies, and today is July 31st. And this beautiful shrub is called a twist and shout hydrangea. Wouldn't you love to have that blooming in your yard? Well, I would too. And I've actually gone out and bought multiple twist and shouts when they came on the market because I had hoped that I would, at this time of year, be able to feast my eyes on these absolutely beautiful blooms. Now, I had very high hopes for these shrubs because they're a new variety that blooms on the old and the new stems. And they advertise it as the very first reblooming Lacecap hydrangea. And they also boast that the stems are strong enough to hold up all the massive blooms that this plant will have all summer long. And it says, I looked up the description of it, and it actually says, whether you enjoy twist and shout as an accent or fill an entire perennial garden, there is no doubt that you will be dancing your way through summer with these endless blooms. I absolutely love the Lacecap hydrangea. I think it is so charming and understated, especially in comparison to its sister, the mophead. They are both in the same family, but look at the difference between them. I really think that the mophead is almost too much, and it's no longer pretty. All I can think to compare it to is that it's like eating an ice cream cone is great, but if you eat the whole half gallon, it makes you sick. That mophead is overindulgent. But anyways, back to the beautiful Lacecap. Can you tell why it gets its name? Few of the flowers actually open on the bloom, and the rest of them, the little white, they look like dots, are actually blooms that never open. They stay closed, and they give you that look of life. And I think they are just elegant. And that's why I bought 5 of them and planted them all around my yard in great hopes of feasting my eyes on them. But here we are in the middle of this beautiful summer when I should be dancing my way through my beautiful twist and shout hydrangeas, and instead of dancing, I am more on a hunt, looking, hoping to find some new buds. But all I have found on my 5 shrubs that are planted in 5 different locations around my yard are 5 blooms. Needless to say, I am disappointed at their performance. Now, in planting and caring for these shrubs, I have followed all the recommendations. I've planted them in the right growing zone. They have just the right amount of sun, good fertile soil, It's well drained, they get enough water. I've pruned correctly. I've done the best I could. And all I'm getting is beautiful green leaves, but no flowers. So what do? Do I just leave them where they are and hope that next year is going to be a better year? Or do I say enough is enough and just realize that they are taking up space for something else that might be more productive, and get rid of them? Today in his devotion, Paul Tripp talks about our spiritual life and what our motivation is. The kingdom of self? Or is our spiritual life motivated by a deep devotion in our hearts towards God and the work of his kingdom? And he gives the example of the Pharisees in Matthew 5:20. And it says, "For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." And of course, this makes me stop and ask myself the question, is my spiritual life motivated by a deep devotion in my heart towards God and the work of his kingdom? Or am I motivated by the kingdom of self? So then Paul sends us over to Matthew 25, where it has the parable of the sheep and the goats. And he says, when the Son of Man comes back in all his glory, it will be like when the shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He'll put the sheep on his right hand and the goats on the left. And the king will say to those on the right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." And then he addressed those on the left side, or the goats, and he said, "You didn't do this for me," and he sent them off to eternal punishment. Now I am beginning to really worry that maybe I am much more like a Pharisee than I ever realized before. Because I know someone that has a heart for God's kingdom, and that's my brother. He spent many of his years of his life dedicated to a food pantry and making sure that anyone who's hungry has food. He actually always has extra bags of groceries in the back of his car just in case he runs across someone who needs it. He is also part of a prison ministry. He goes in to the prison and visits with the inmates, and he takes them homemade chocolate chip cookies. And after he's established a good relationship with them and they trust him, he presents the gospel and disciples them until they leave prison, with the great hope that their new relationship with Christ will keep them from ever returning to prison again. Now, he has been doing both of these ministries for decades. And when I think of Matthew 25, I'm sure that my brother would be among the sheep that are ushered into the kingdom. And when I compare myself to him, I think I might be among the goats. Now, when I was thinking about this gloomy state of affairs, I was actually out in my garden. standing in front of these two hydrangea bushes thinking, you are nothing but two mounds of green leaves. I've done everything I could for you, and you aren't living up to my expectations and producing flowers, so I'm done. I've had it. I'm digging you up, and you are out of here. And at that moment, it occurred to me that God might make that same harsh judgment on me. After all he's done for me, and after all he's given me, have I disappointed him? Have I let him down? And the answer is yes. Yes, you have every day. But here's the good news. And Tripp says this in this very opening statement. Grace not only forgives you, but enables you to live for something hugely bigger than yourself. Why go back to your little kingdom of one? So, just as God has forgiven me and enabled me with a heart of worship to go on to something hugely bigger, I think I will do the same for my Lacecap hydrangeas. I won't give up on them. I'll forget about the past, and I'll love them into blooming. So thank you for joining me today at Mimi's Sketchbook. I hope this has been an encouragement to you. And if it has, could you please give it a thumbs up? Because that's how YouTube will help us spread the good news. So thank you, and God bless.